does the bullshit start, Armand?
Hello everyone and welcome back. Okay guys, I got it wrong in my last theory video about Armand being the one to save Louis. I made the video before episode 8 came out, but my point up until that error, well, it's actually not even an error, it's what the show led us to believe until the actual truth came out, were sound. So for those of you informing me that I have to redo or remake the video, it's not gonna happen. But what I am going to do is take what I've learned from episode 8 of Interview with the Vampire season 2 and explain to you all how the Vampire Armand was nothing but an absolute, total and complete fraud for both seasons, not just season 2. I also have to address the question on if the TV show exposed Armand's character for what he truly was, or did they kind of ruin his character from the book's perspective, because I always believed Armand was this cool vampire, very mysterious, and I ended up not really liking him after the season finale. But hey, that is what viewer attachment does when you invest in a character on screen. Anyway, let's break down Armand and the huge lie he's been living for so many years as Louis' companion. Now I can sympathise with Armand's beginnings. He had a very, very tough upbringing. His original name was Andre, a talented young painter who was then kidnapped and sold into sexual slavery, who was then rescued by the vampire Marius de Romanus, who turned him into a vampire just at the point of adult maturity. Marius initially wanted to wait a little longer, but that's another story. He renames him Amadeo. During his time with Marius, he used men for his own pleasure, in particular a man named Lord Harlech, who he hurt that badly that Harlech ended up having a mental breakdown and tried to kill Armand so nobody else could have him. Armand knew how Harlech felt about him all along. Then he's kidnapped by a satanic cult, beaten and brainwashed for 6 months before being renamed again, this time to Armand, and given his own coven to rule in Paris. So the book differs to the TV show obviously, and that applies to Armand's view on the coven. In the book he wanted to protect the coven's beliefs, but in the TV show he had grown tired of living a life devoted to Satan, living a life of poverty, living in the shadows like vermin. Or did he? His coven were pretty dedicated to their satanic practices. Armand knew that he would not be able to convince them to change their beliefs, and he seizes the opportunity to do so when he comes across Lestat de Liancourt. He forces Lestat to help him, but at least offers the exchange of the mind gift in return. Lestat does what he says he do, basically shits all over the satanic cult-like beliefs and takes the coven to the theatre. However, Armand never knew this to begin with. He thought they all either committed suicide or vanished further into isolated seclusion. Not that he cared anyway, he was free of that life now. So he becomes immediately drawn to Louis and views him as a possession that he needs to acquire. And he always viewed and treated Louis that way, even in the actual interview process with Daniel. Louis says that Armand has always looked after him, took care of him and knows what's best for him. Armand, for example, filters through and removes documents from their archives without Louis' knowledge. He was behind the suggestion to remove the pages from Claudia's diary, when in reality it was clear manipulation. He quickly identified that Claudia was a problem when it came to him having Louis all to himself. He knew Louis had a very strong attachment to her. He also highlighted that Claudia was far too young to be made, that she would eventually succumb to the growing separation on her ever-growing mind and her childlike body, that she was destined for the fire one day. It appears as if he took out his frustrations on Claudia by mistreating and humiliating her when she expressed her loss of passion to continue her performances in My Baby Loves Windows, and that she will wear the costume until she finds her passion again. In reality, what Armand is doing here is reminding Claudia that she is no different to the character she plays, that she will always look the way she does, she will never mature into an adult, she will always be treated as a child by those who don't know her. He is basically making Claudia live out her worst nightmare and biggest insecurity every single day in order to break her, so she eventually sends herself into the fire. He was incredibly cruel to her in order to get his own desired outcome, meaning he has Louis convinced that this is what Claudia wanted when she initially joined the coven, and Louis falls for it, knowing Claudia is suffering but also knowing that she asked for it. Claudia, in truth, only wanted to be with more of her own kind. He played on Louis' vulnerability the entire time. He knew how weak Louis' mind block was, how easy it was to infiltrate it and discover the secrets of Louis' mind. He says he knows the name Lestat has some significance to Louis, but asks him to tell him about Lestat when the time was right. Armand knew all along, he knew everything. He openly disregarded his own rules to have Louis around, despite not being a coven member, showing how much of a hypocritical, opportunistic and unprincipled person he truly was. It was all for his own benefit. He agreed to the trial, he agreed to the judgment, and he agreed to the would-be execution of Claudia and Louis. He set them both up under false pretenses to be captured, just as Claudia and Madeleine were going to leave. And then he just walks away from them because he knows he can't look Louis in the face. He makes out like he lost his power altogether and was mistreated by the coven for his actions. What actions? The only actions he carried out was finally adhering to his own rules and allowed the coven to inflict the punishment necessary. He then has the audacity to claim credit for saving Louis' life by controlling the crowd with the mind gift and forcing them to say banishment, when he done nothing but sit there and watch when he was the one who directed the entire play rehearsal. He watched as Madeleine died in agony. He watched Claudia die in what I could call a proud, unmoved death, like she embraced her fate, and he would have sat there and watched Louis die too. He done nothing to help him, but took credit for Lestat's intervention. So this throws everything that Armand said into doubt, everything, his entire recount of things, and I can guarantee you guys, I can guarantee you that if in season 3 they show Lestat's own version of the encounter with Armand, it will be completely different, because in the book, Lestat absolutely beats the crap out of Armand right before his coven. He makes him look so weak. Armand didn't stand a chance against him, and this makes even more sense because where else do we see Armand use the power to telepathically throw a vampire around like a ragdoll the way he did with Lestat? We don't. We never do. We don't see it again. He is fabricating everything to his favour, and I am so sure he will be exposed further next season. The difference between he and Louis' biased accounts of things is that Louis' mind struggles to deal with the painful memories, so he doesn't exactly realise he's changing things. It's kind of like a coping mechanism for him, living with his guilt, living with his pain, whereas Armand is just an out-and-out double dealer. He has been nothing more than a fraud for 2 seasons. One season as Rashid, and the other season, he might as well stayed in the Rashid character because his deceit only moved on to other aspects. Guys, that is all for today's video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I will catch you all for the next one.